What they could do, and you saw it in this one. Like, it was a bloodbath. Like, they were just, TCU didn't know what hit them, and this was elite offensive play.
How about the really brutal David Pollock, Nick Saban exchange? Did you see that?
I did see that. That's incredible.
I will say, and I've said this, I think, going in, the people who are just dunking on the grave of Nick Saban and this album, they were they were right there a year ago. Let's not forget that. They absolutely dismantled a good Kansas State team who beat TCU, obviously, in the Big 12 title game. Just absolutely obliterated them out of the building. In similar fashion to what Georgia just did to TCU. They obviously did not win a title in the last 2 years with Bryce Young. It's kind of wild that he will walk out of Bama with a ring as the guy under center, considering he's the best Alabama quarterback of all time. You look at this class coming in that they have, it's arguably their best class ever. I think Bama's going to be fine. I think Georgia is now for certain, but it goes back to what I'm saying, where it's a game of inches. It's a game of moments for these big dogs like Bama and Georgia. And I don't think it's that clear. I think Georgia is 1A, but I'm like, Bama still won in 2020. Bama was still right there in 2021. I understand they underachieved under Bama standards because, like you said, before the year, and I was one of those people who predicted Bama to win it all this year, and it was going to be a revenge tour for Saban based on that loss in the national title game to Georgia. But like, let's pump the brakes on Nick Saban loosening his grip on the college football world. I think that's a little premature. I think it's more 1A and 1B. I think now we're at a point where Georgia and Alabama are coexisting in this we run the sport vortex. So I think that's more of what it is. I don't think Georgia has like knocked Bama out. I think it's just Georgia has joined Alabama. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense, but because by definition, I think that kind of means the Bama dynasty is over. It's like that doesn't mean that Bama can no longer win a championship. But
if they win next year, that'd be 2 and 4 years, right? Like that's a dynasty. 2 and 4 years.
But is it? I mean, the dynasty.
And they went in the third. They
debatable,
went another one. Like I think that's still a dynasty.
But I'm saying I think the dynasty is over because they had this stranglehold on being the elite team of college football. Like there was no close second. Like people tried to act like Clemson was a close second for a few years, and it's like they were second. They were a clear second, but they weren't ever actually close to Alabama. They had a couple years of just, elite, a couple teams that were as good as Alabama, but that's not to be confused with the program, with the machine that Alabama is. It's like where their rebuilding years are when they have, Jalen Hurts as the starter and they go to the national championship game. Or last year is a rebuilding year where they lose to Georgia in the national championship game. So it feels like now they're like a regular elite team in college football. Like they could win the national championship. Their chances to win the national championship are as good or better than just about anyone out there. But in terms of like the true, like them just being the juggernaut of just like the standard of college football, I feel like you have to say that era is over.
We'll see. Let me see how next year goes. Let me see. Without Stetson Bennett.
You think they're going to be better next year? Without Bryce Young, without Will Anderson, without Jahmyr Gibbs? Like, Jahmyr Gibbs at times was the only thing their offense had. Like, they're going to hit the portal, I'm sure. But they brought in, the best class of all time. Is that right? The highest ranked class ever in this. So it's obviously big time, but like, Georgia brought in the number 2 class. It's like Georgia brought in a super elite class as well. And there's a lot more proven, commodities on Georgia's roster. Like they're not like Georgia. The 2023 was after last year. 2023 was kind of always perceived to be maybe a better team than 2022, just because this team was so young.
Justice Haynes is coming in, who they beat Georgia for. Like that was a huge surprise.
No, for sure.
So he might be a big factor. We see these rookies. Like, I mean, you saw Brock Bowers as make an immediate impact, and we've seen that at some of these schools where, as freshmen, Jace McClellan obviously going to be the guy there, but I think they're going to be fine there. We'll see what happens at receiver. I think that's one of the bigger questions with Kobe Prentice and Jermaine Burton. I assume is going to be back, but I think Ja'Cory Brooks, Malik Benson was that big JUCO transfer that Bama beat Tennessee out for. I think he has a chance to be really, really good for them.
But also, if you look at a guy like Brock Bowers in 2021, he's like, that was one of the cherries on top. Like, Georgia's core was like their juniors and seniors on defense that like had been around a while, like the Jordan Davises and Devontae Wyatt's coming back for their senior year. Like, I mean, obviously the quarterback room turned out to be way better than it was expected to be. But I don't know. I think Alabama, I mean, you saw what they were this year. Like, they were not a juggernaut this year. It's hard for me to think Alabama's going to be better in 2023 than they were in 2022 without
but it wouldn't
the best
surprise
quarterback.
you, would it?
I mean, nothing really surprises you with Alabama. But
like, if Ty Simpson's awesome immediately, would that really jump? Like,
if Ty Simpson's better than Bryce Young, that would absolutely shock me. And I think with what this roster is, like, it's not necessarily getting like a lot better. Like, in term, like, obviously, like, true, you can only put so much on true freshmen. Like, they're gonna have good players on this team, but Alabama's losing a lot of their core and especially the best quarterback they've ever had in the history of the program. Like, I think that's a lot, and that's why Georgia is scary, because Stetson Bennett, while we are going to call him now the best quarterback in the history of Georgia's program, it's like if they land a 5-star number 1 quarterback in the country, like, there's a good chance that guy could be better than Stetson Bennett, and Georgia's offense could be better under an actual NFL highly touted prospect. You know, it's like, I don't think people have like even made that realization yet that Georgia was doing this with, and obviously Stetson is way better than just a former walk-on. Like, that doesn't do him justice, but this is a guy that we're debating if he can play in the league or not. If Georgia actually gets a guy who's a first-round pick running the show on offense, like, this offense could be even more dangerous.
For sure. Let's see. Can I get a couple of years of Bama not being national champions? Can I just get a couple, let's get to 3 or 4, and then we'll start talking. Let's see what happens. I'm not saying I'm rooting for it. Absolutely not. I don't want Georgia and Alabama to just be alternating for the next couple of years. That wouldn't be fun. But we'll see. Who stood out watching from home when you were watching from home? Who stood out to you when you're in the Green household? Who you were like, oh my God, he's awesome tonight? Who from the Dawgs were you just really all in on in the moment?
I think you got to shout out the guy who made the key play in the Ohio State game, and that would be Javon Bullard. I think Javon Bullard was just an absolute playmaker. Like, Georgia had 3 turnovers in this game. Javon Bullard had 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery. Like, he's just one of those guys. And once again, this guy was a 3-star. Like, one of the lowest ranked guys in Kirby Smart's class, was the most outstanding defensive player of the Peach Bowl and the most outstanding defensive player of the national championship game. Like, this guy playing that nickel spot, he's just